The night started too perfect. I should have known then. When things are that smooth, that quiet, it usually means something's loading in the shadows. I booked the reservation 3 weeks earlier, down to the exact table in the back corner by the glass wall. The one we sat at 3 years ago when she cried over dessert because she thought she couldn't have kids. I remembered every detail. I brought her favorite wine, wrapped the gift myself, and made sure the box was small enough to mean something but not enough to scare her off. I wasn't proposing again, I wasn't that naive. But I had something close to it planned. Something meaningful. She didn't show up. At first, it was 5 minutes. Then 10. Then 20. The waiter kept glancing at me like I'd been stood up. I wasn't panicked. Not yet. I told myself she'd walk in late, flustered, phone in hand, some story about a delayed Uber or a surprise meeting. She had this way of turning every inconvenience into a small epic, and I always let it slide. I didn't even check my phone right away because I didn't want to seem desperate. But by the time the wine bottle was sweating more than I was, I finally looked. There was a single message, something came up. I'll explain later. That was it. No apology. No call. Just that. I sat there. Fully dressed, polished shoes, gift box burning a hole in my jacket pocket. I started to get up, thinking maybe I should head home, maybe she was already there, when someone approached my table. I didn't notice him at first, just a presence, like someone stepping too close in a grocery line. He didn't say excuse me, didn't ask if I was Jake. He just stood there until I looked up. And then he said it. Calm, flat. No emotion. She's not coming. She's with someone else. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? My name's Colin, he said. My wife is with your wife. Right now. Not figuratively. I mean right now, in real time. He didn't look angry. That was what made it worse. It was like he'd practiced this. Like it wasn't his first time having to explain his own humiliation. I asked him what the hell he was talking about, but my voice cracked halfway through. He just handed me a phone. Not his. Hers. I knew that lock screen. That was her background. He said he found it in his car's glove compartment. She must have forgotten it. On it was a message thread. My wife's name at the top. The texts weren't long or poetic. They weren't even emotional. Just logistics. Cold, calculated planning of secret meetups. And the most recent one was time-stamped 30 minutes ago. A location 2 blocks from where we were sitting. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. Take it, he said. I don't want it anymore. I'm done being polite. I don't know why I followed him. Maybe it was because I wanted proof. Maybe it was the way he said it, like there was no longer a question to be asked. I left the restaurant, gift box still in my coat, and walked with the stranger I'd never met through city streets like we were 2 ghosts chasing a storm. We reached the place, a boutique hotel, not the kind for business trips, the kind for secrets. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I waited outside, just long enough to see her walk out with someone who was not Colin. Someone younger, taller, wearing a smug face like he thought the world owed him admiration. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. She just sighed, like I was the problem for being there. I hadn't spoken yet. Not one word. But inside, everything broke loose like a dam. And that was just the beginning. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions. I watched. She stepped out of that hotel like she was leaving a spa appointment, not crawling out of a lie. Her jacket hung off one shoulder, hair pulled into a knot that I'd once thought looked like art. The man beside her looked bored. Or maybe just proud of himself. He held her hand. She didn't let go. She saw me standing there, 5 feet from the entrance, with Colin half a step behind me. Her expression didn't shift. Not fear. Not guilt. Just inconvenience. What are you doing here? She asked. That's how she started it. Not I'm sorry. Not let me explain. Just that. As if I'd shown up to the wrong meeting. As if I'd ruined her night. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. My mouth was open, but the words got caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. Colin was staring at his own wife now. She was standing a few feet away, avoiding his eyes like a coward. The whole thing felt like a twisted double date gone off the rails. The guy she was with turned toward me and, I kid you not, laughed. A small, smug, dismissive sound that made my blood boil. Guess the dinner got canceled, huh? I don't remember moving toward him. I remember Colin's arm catching mine. His voice low but urgent. Not worth it. I stepped back. She finally spoke again. You're being dramatic. That's what she said. That's what she had the audacity to say. Like I just overreacted to her being 2 hours late and stepping out of a hotel with a stranger. While the dinner reservation I'd made for our anniversary sat cold, I asked her why. 3 letters. 1 word. I said it flat. No begging. No cracked voice. Just why. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. I don't owe you a breakdown of my choices. And just like that, I saw her. Not the version I'd married. Not the curated one. Not the soft smiles or the fake laughs at dinner parties. I saw her. The woman underneath all the stories. And she was cruel. Not just for what she did, but for how easily she discarded the wreckage of it. Colin's wife tried to say something, her voice trembling, looking between the 3 of us like a kid caught stealing. But no one was listening to her anymore. I looked back at mine. I waited for you. She raised an eyebrow. That's on you. That's when it shifted. Not the betrayal. Not the cheating. It was already done. But that moment, the dismissal, that's when it all calcified. When the ache turned into something colder. Sharper. You could have just left me, I said. She laughed under her breath. Please. Like you'd survive that. Colin finally lost it. Not violently, but his voice cracked like something inside him finally split open. We gave you everything. We trusted you. His wife rolled her eyes. Mine just turned to her new guy and said, Can we go? They walked away, hand in hand. No fear. No apology. No trace of the women we thought we knew. I didn't follow. Neither did Colin. We just stood there, 2 strangers tied together by the same humiliation. The same brutal clarity. Then he said something that stuck with me. They never planned to tell us. They just planned to leave when it was convenient. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands were shaking, not from anger, from how fast everything fell apart. From how easy it was for her to pretend I never mattered. The walk home felt like something out of a dream, the kind where the streetlights are too bright and everything around you moves half a second slower than it should. I didn't take an Uber. Didn't call anyone. I needed the silence. I needed to hear the sound of my own footsteps, the weight of each step dragging behind me like a question I didn't know how to ask yet. Colin offered to walk with me. I told him no. Not because I didn't want company, but because I didn't want to share the shame out loud yet. I wasn't ready to say it. That she'd done this. That she did it so effortlessly. When I got to the apartment, everything looked untouched, too untouched. Her shoes were still neatly by the door. The necklace I bought her last Christmas still sat in the tray by the sink. It was like she'd hit pause on our life, snuck out to burn it down, and then expected to return before I noticed the smoke. I didn't take my coat off. I just stood in the middle of the living room and let the silence climb over me like ivy. My phone buzzed. I didn't look. I knew it was her. Not because she felt bad. No, it'd be something practical. Something transactional. She always reached for control the second something slipped out of her hands. I finally checked the message an hour later. We need to talk. Tomorrow. I don't want a scene tonight. That was it. Not I'm sorry, not can we fix this. Not even an explanation. Just an order. Like she was managing a calendar invite. I didn't respond. I didn't have the words. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for nuking our anniversary in the most humiliating way possible? Looking forward to your PowerPoint presentation tomorrow? Instead, I started opening drawers. Not out of curiosity, out of instinct. I wasn't even thinking. I just wanted to find something that would make this make sense. And I found it. A small, black notebook, tucked between old tax folders in her desk drawer. I didn't recognize it. She used to keep journals when we first met. Poetry, thoughts, sketches. I never opened them. But this one was different. New, clean. No name. No decoration. Inside there were notes. Lists. Names. Dates. Hotel names. Initials. Some entries were coded, some weren't. One just said, "See. Finally broke. Will handle after dinner with Jay." That was me. That was tonight. She'd written it like a business note. Like cheating was just another task on her checklist. Like my heartbreak was a minor logistical obstacle. I sat on the floor with that notebook in my hands, staring at her handwriting like it was written in another language. I felt stupid. I felt used. But more than anything, I felt erased. Like I had never been real to her. Just a placeholder until she found a more entertaining audience. The front door opened at 1:14 a.m. I didn't look up. I didn't move. She walked in like she owned the place, tossed her purse on the counter, kicked off her heels. And when she finally saw me sitting there, with her little secret notebook in my lap, she didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She smirked. "You went through my stuff?" she said. No shame, just annoyance. "I was looking for the person I married," I said. "Turns out she never lived here." She sat across from me on the couch like this was just another debate. Like we were splitting chores. "You always needed things to feel like a movie," she said. "Some grand act of love. Some big moment. But real life is boring, Jake. And you were so boring." I didn't throw the notebook. I placed it gently on the coffee table right in front of her. She looked at it, then back at me. "You were going to find out eventually." That line. Eventually. Like I was the last one to get the joke. Like the whole world had been in on it, and I just missed the punchline. I stood up. She didn't flinch. "We're done," I said. She nodded. Finally. Then she had the gall to ask, "Do you want me to stay somewhere else tonight? Or should I give you time to pack?" Like I was the one who didn't belong anymore. Like I was the one intruding in her carefully engineered betrayal. I didn't answer. I walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. Not because I thought she'd follow, but because I wanted one part of this place to still be mine, even if it was just for the night. Morning didn't feel like morning. It was one of those gray, flavorless dawns where the sun forgets to show up and the air hangs heavy. Like the sky itself doesn't want to get involved. I hadn't slept. Not 1 minute. I sat in bed all night, not lying down, just leaning against the headboard like a soldier waiting for an alarm that never came. The door to the bedroom stayed closed. I didn't hear much outside, just a few soft movements. She didn't knock. She didn't ask if I was okay. The silence between us had mutated into something venomous. Like even the idea of acknowledging me would be beneath her now. Around 7 a.m., I opened the door. She was sitting at the kitchen island, legs crossed, sipping coffee like she was prepping for a casual Monday meeting. She didn't even look up when I walked in, just reached for her phone, tapped something, then finally said, "We need to talk about logistics." That word again. Logistics. I sat down at the opposite end of the island, keeping the width of the countertop between us like it could shield me from how surreal she'd become. "You want to talk about logistics?" I said. My voice so flat it didn't even sound like mine. "I don't want to fight," she said, like she was the rational one. Like she hadn't detonated our lives with a smile and walked away from the wreckage with clean shoes. "You don't get to set the tone anymore," I replied. She tilted her head, studied me. "You're angry." I actually laughed. A short, sharp exhale. "No. See, anger's what I felt when you walked out of that hotel with another man and looked at me like I was a stranger. What I feel now. This is clarity." She paused, stirred her coffee. "I never wanted this to be messy," she said. "I wanted a clean break. I wanted to do this like adults." "You planned it," I said, louder now. "I found your notebook. You wrote it out like a playbook. You scheduled your betrayal." She looked me dead in the eyes. "Yes. And do you want to know why?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She was going to say it anyway. Because if I didn't plan it, I never would have left. I would have stayed in this loop forever. "You," she pointed slightly, like I was a figure in a painting. "You don't make space for reality. You live in this curated version of us." I wanted out. And I knew you'd never believe it unless it slapped you in the face. "You're right," I said slowly. Because I believed you were decent. She rolled her eyes. Spare me the moral lecture. You think just because you didn't cheat that makes you a saint. I think it makes me loyal, I snapped. I think it makes me a husband who showed up. Every day. Even when it got hard. Even when you stopped trying. The word loyal hung in the air like smoke. And then she said something so cold I almost didn't believe I'd heard it right. Loyalty from someone who stopped being interesting isn't a gift. It's a burden. I stood up. My hands were clenched. Not from rage, but because that was the only way to stop them from shaking. You know what's crazy? I said. You talk like I held you hostage, like I forced you to stay. But every single day you chose this. You woke up, drank your coffee, kissed me goodbye, and chose this life until you didn't. And the second you wanted something else, you didn't ask for space. You cheated. You lied. You erased me like a typo. She didn't respond. Just sipped her coffee again, slower now. Almost bored. I'm filing today, I said. She blinked. You're that eager to get lawyers involved? No. I'm eager to be done with you. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Not sadness. Not guilt. Just irritation. Like I'd beaten her to the punch. She stood up and walked past me toward the bedroom. Fine, she said. I'll pack my things. I'll stay at Caleb's. So now I had a name. I didn't stop her. I didn't ask anything else. I let her go. She disappeared into the hallway and I was left standing in a kitchen that suddenly felt like a museum of a life that never existed. I picked up her coffee mug. It was still warm. And I poured it down the drain. She left that afternoon. 2 suitcases, 1 duffel bag, and her laptop. That was all she took. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't ask if I needed anything. She just wheeled her life out the front door like a guest checking out of a hotel she never planned to return to. I watched from the window as Caleb pulled up in a matte black BMW, the kind that screams least arrogance. He didn't come up. Didn't look around. He popped the trunk and stayed behind the wheel, tapping something on his phone, probably texting someone else while my wife, ex-wife in progress, loaded in the pieces of the life we'd built together. She didn't glance up at the window. It was like I was already deleted. After the car disappeared around the corner, the silence took a new shape. Not the kind that feels peaceful. The kind that hums. Like the walls themselves are whispering questions I don't want to answer. I didn't cry. Not because I was strong. Because I couldn't. There was something locked up tight in my chest. Like my body refused to give her that one last thing. But I was unraveling. I could feel it. 1,000 little emotional splinters under the surface. So I did something that surprised even me. I called my brother. We hadn't spoken much in the last few months. Life, distance, the usual excuses. But when he picked up, I didn't give him the long version. Just said, "She's gone. For real. It's over." There was a pause. And then he said, "I'm coming over." And he did. 30 minutes later. No questions. No judgment. Just a 6-pack of something cold, a bag of takeout, and the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. We sat on the couch for an hour, eating in silence. And then finally I cracked. I told him everything. The hotel. The stranger. The notebook. The smirk. The line about me being a burden. He didn't interrupt. He didn't throw out sympathy cliches. He just listened, the way only someone who's seen you at your worst can. When I was done, he looked at me and said something I didn't expect. "You know this isn't on you, right?" She'd already left long before that hotel. That was just the performance. The exit music. It hit me like a punch to the ribs. Because he was right. She'd been slipping for months. Maybe years. There were signs, not just the missed dinners or the fake smiles. It was the way she'd stopped laughing at anything I said. The way she'd started locking her phone. The way I stopped being her home and became just the person who paid half the bills. But I didn't want to be the victim. I didn't want that label stapled to my chest. I wanted to understand. I wanted it to make sense. So later that night, when the apartment had gone still again, I did what I swore I wouldn't. I logged into her old laptop. She hadn't changed the password. Maybe she didn't think I'd stoop to that level. Maybe she just didn't care. Either way, I got in. emails, messages, calendars, and then one folder, titled Unsent. Inside were drafts, dozens, maybe more, letters to me, letters to him, journal entries, some angry, some apologetic, some completely unhinged. It was a graveyard of things she never said out loud. One in particular froze me. It was dated 6 months ago. It started like this: "If he ever finds out, I'll tell him I'm sorry, but I'm not. I can't be, because I've already buried that version of myself. And if he's still looking for her, then he never really knew me anyway." I didn't finish the rest, because I realized something in that moment, something ugly but freeing. She never intended to come back. Not just physically, not emotionally, not spiritually. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted freedom. And the version of her that I was married to, that woman was long gone. Maybe she never existed. So I closed the laptop, deleted the folder, and for the first time in days I felt something close to calm. Not peace, but the start of it. I woke up the next morning to sunlight cutting through the blinds like knives. It was too bright for the kind of week I was having. The apartment was still. Her perfume, that overly sweet vanilla one she bathed in like it was armor, had finally faded from the hallway. The air was cleaner, bare, but not free of her. Not yet. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from an unknown number. A voicemail. I listened to it once. Then again. It wasn't her voice. It was her mother's. She said she'd just heard from her, that she'd made some difficult decisions and was struggling emotionally. The mother asked if I could be patient. Said she knew things were complicated, but hoped I wouldn't act out of pain or pride. I didn't respond. I wasn't about to be guilted by a woman who raised a daughter who could lie so cleanly, cheat so strategically, and walk away without leaving a scratch of apology behind. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just destroy trust, it corrodes identity. It makes you question everything, down to the way you tie your shoes or the songs you use to sing in the car together. I spent half the day wandering the apartment like a ghost, opening drawers just to see what was missing, what she'd taken with her. She left the photo albums. That hit harder than I expected. She took the expensive sunglasses I bought her for her birthday, but she left the book of our wedding photos. I opened it. Page 1, the two of us smiling under an arch of white flowers. Her eyes bright, mine squinting from the sun. We looked young, reckless, in love maybe, or at least very good at pretending. I flipped through slowly, watching the years rewind. Trips to the coast, her laughing with her feet in the water. A birthday party with friends who'd since disappeared. My arm always around her like she was mine to protect. Like I could protect her from boredom, from doubt, from herself. The last photo in the album was different. Not a selfie. Not a posed shot. Just her sitting on the couch, reading a book, sunlight on her hair, her eyes half closed. I took that one secretly years ago. She looked peaceful. Untouchable. I stared at it for a long time. And then, without thinking, I ripped it out. Clean from the binding. I burned it. Not for revenge. For survival. Because holding on to the image of her that I wanted to be real was killing me faster than the truth ever could. Later that night, my brother came over again. He brought me something, a thick yellow envelope. I didn't want to do this yet, he said, but you need to see it. Inside were photos. Private investigator stuff. I didn't ask how he got them. He just said he'd started looking into things the night I told him. Said he had a hunch. Said her story didn't add up, and apparently neither did her timeline. The photos weren't grainy. They weren't from a distance. They were clear. Her, Caleb, 2 other men, different dates, different places. One at a bar I'd taken her to for our anniversary just 2 years ago. Another at a rooftop restaurant I didn't recognize. It wasn't just Caleb. She had a rotation. She'd been doing this longer than I thought. The journal wasn't just strategy, it was history. A whole web of side lives she curated with surgical precision. Like I was her base camp, but her real life started when she walked out the door. She didn't cheat, I said out loud, voice hollow. She lived elsewhere. This life with me. This was her disguise. My brother nodded. Then why stay? I asked. Why keep up the show for so long? He didn't have to answer. I already knew. I was the safety net, the steady paycheck, the respectable husband with the good friends, the clean record, the mortgage in both names. I was the reputation builder while she went off playing double lives like it was sport. I sat down on the floor and laughed. A dry, cracked sound that didn't feel like laughter at all. She used to call me her constant. I said, "Yeah." My brother replied, quiet. Because she knew she could come back to you after everything else. I looked at the pile of photos, her face smiling in each one like she'd never been caught. She's not coming back this time. I said it not for him, but for me. And for the first time I meant it. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time it wasn't from shock. It was planning. Something had shifted inside me. Like the pieces of who I was were rearranging themselves into something sharper, more precise. Not colder, not crueler, just finally awake. I made coffee at 4 a.m. The kind she hated, too strong, no sugar. The kind I used to drink before I started watering myself down to suit her moods. Then I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and began writing a letter. Not to her. Not to Caleb. Not even to her mother. To myself. It started like this. You didn't deserve what happened. But you did allow it to grow. I wrote out everything I'd ignored. Every time I noticed her phone flipped down on the table. Every dinner where her eyes were somewhere else. Every subtle deflection when I tried to talk about the future and she brushed it off with that fake laugh. I wrote it all down, not to blame myself, but to see it. To drag every piece of denial into the light. I needed to know how deep the rot had gone. By 6 a.m. I was done. It wasn't a letter anymore. It was a confession. Not of guilt, but of clarity. Then I printed it, folded it, placed it in the same drawer where she used to keep her love notes to me, those carefully curated lies written in soft ink back when she still pretended to love me. And then I called my lawyer. I didn't ask questions, just gave him the rundown and told him to file. No mediation, no delay. I wanted it clean, legal, fast, and I wanted nothing from her. Not the apartment, not the car. Not the shared account with money I mostly earned. I wanted to sever every tie, every thread, every legal whisper of attachment. Because what she left behind wasn't a marriage, it was a performance space that had gone dark. By noon, the papers were being drawn. By 2 p.m., I got a text from her. I heard you're filing. Can we at least talk before we make it official? No punctuation. Just like always. Lazy. Bare minimum emotion. I stared at the screen for a while. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. And then, instead of replying, I blocked her. I didn't need to hear another word. Not from someone who could orchestrate my betrayal with timestamps and calendar invites. Later that day, I took the rest of her things, the few she'd forgotten, and boxed them up. The scarf she always left on the coat rack, that hideous necklace from her sister, a stack of books she claimed to love but never read. And her wedding ring. Yes. She left it. It wasn't in the bedroom. It wasn't even in the jewelry drawer. It was in the bathroom, next to the toothbrush she never used, under the sink, wedged behind an old box of Band-Aids. I found it by accident. No note. No message. Just left there like an afterthought. Like it didn't mean a thing. I put it in the box. Then I taped it shut. I drove it to her work myself. Didn't even call. Just dropped it at the front desk, told the receptionist it was personal delivery for her, and walked away. 15 minutes later, she called me from a different number. I let it ring. Then I turned my phone off. That night, my brother and I sat on the balcony drinking whatever he brought over. The city was humming below us, lights blinking like signals from a world I'd forgotten was still out there. And he said something I didn't expect. Proud of you, man. You're not just reacting. You're deciding. And I realized that's what I'd lost in the marriage. My ability to decide. I'd been operating in response mode for years. Chasing her moods. Trying to fix what she wouldn't even name. Now, finally, I was building the escape myself. I went to bed early that night. Not because I was tired, but because I finally felt like tomorrow wasn't something to dread anymore. The next morning was the first that didn't start with her absence screaming in my face. It wasn't that I didn't think about her. I did. She was there in the quiet moments, in the way I poured my coffee, in the gap her laugh used to fill even when it was fake. But something fundamental had shifted. She wasn't centered anymore. She was just orbiting, a distant satellite of a life I no longer recognized as my own. I didn't check my phone, didn't scroll through old photos. I didn't even open my laptop. I got dressed, stepped out, and walked. No destination, just movement. The city looked different, sharper, not cruel, not welcoming, just honest, like it was done pretending for me too. I ended up at a coffee shop I hadn't been to in years. Not since we first started dating. We used to come here on Saturdays, pretending we were artistic, urban, that kind of couple. I remember she used to bring her laptop and open it, pretending to write while I actually read. We were always faking something, even back then. I sat near the window, ordered a black coffee. No sugar, no syrup, no memories. And that's when it happened. Someone walked in. A woman. Not her. Nothing like her. She didn't catch my eye for any particular reason at first, except that she looked alive. Not polished. Not curated. Alive. She ordered tea, then turned slightly, catching me looking without embarrassment. "You used to come here a lot," she said. I blinked. "Sorry. You and your wife?" She hesitated. "Girlfriend? You guys used to sit by the window." I laughed once, low. "Yeah. Long time ago." "She always looked bored," the woman said. That made me pause. "You noticed that?" She smiled. "I used to work here. A few years ago. I remember faces. Especially the ones that pretend too hard." We didn't talk long. Just enough for her to ask what I was reading, I wasn't, and for me to admit that I was mostly there because I didn't know where else to go yet. She nodded. Sometimes the best place is somewhere old that's been waiting to mean something new. Then she left. Didn't ask for my number. Didn't offer hers. Just walked out. And it wasn't romantic. It wasn't a sign. It wasn't the beginning of anything. But it reminded me there are people in this world who see things as they are, not how they're dressed up to look. And I hadn't been one of those people in a long, long time. I went home later that day and opened the closet. The suits I bought because she liked me in them. The shirts I wore because she hated patterns. The shoes I polished for events I wasn't invited to anymore. I packed half of it. All the versions of myself I built for her approval. Donation pile. Gone. Then I did something impulsive. I called her boss. We'd met a few times back when she still introduced me as her husband in public. He was polite, reserved. Always looked at me like I was someone to be tolerated. When he picked up, I said, "Hey, I'm sure this is strange, but I just want you to know she doesn't live here anymore. And if she tries to use me for any professional leverage, I'm not involved. Not covering for her anymore. Not managing the damage." He didn't sound surprised. Just said understood. That told me everything I needed to know. She'd been using me as a social alibi, even at work. When I hung up, it hit me I was undoing her. Bit by bit. Not with fire. Not with rage. But with precision. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I was reclaiming every inch of my own name. Every time I set something down that used to belong to her or made a decision she once monopolized, I felt a little lighter. A little more me. She hadn't just broken my heart. She'd hijacked my life. And now I was taking it back. A week passed. Then another. Her silence wasn't just loud, it was deliberate. Strategic. Like she thought disappearing would give her power. That I'd collapse, chase. But what she didn't realize was that every day she didn't reach out, didn't apologize, didn't show an ounce of human remorse, she made it easier. For me to forget her voice. For me to stop picturing her in this space. For me to reclaim the narrative. But she finally broke the silence on a Wednesday evening, exactly 16 days after I filed. An email. Not a text. Not a call. Subject line, closure. I hovered over it for 5 minutes before opening it. Part of me didn't want to. Not out of fear, but because I knew exactly what would be inside. A long-winded, tone-polished, emotionally vacant monologue filled with just enough honesty to look sincere and just enough self-pity to make her the victim. I was right. She wrote about how things evolved. How she never meant to hurt me. How she'd been unhappy for a long time and just didn't know how to say it out loud. She said, "I didn't cheat on you. I cheated on the version of us that wasn't real anymore." That line actually made me laugh. Out loud. She thought she was being profound, poetic even. but all I saw was cowardice wrapped in metaphor. The next paragraph was the one that burned though. She wrote, "I thought you'd fight for me. I waited for it. And when you didn't, I knew we were over." That sentence told me everything. She wanted a scene. She wanted drama. The screaming, the tears, the "I can't live without you." But I didn't give her that. And in her world, that meant I didn't love her enough. In reality, it meant I finally loved myself more. I didn't reply. I archived it. And I got in the car. I drove. No destination. Just roads. Windows down. Air cold enough to bite. Eventually, I ended up back at the hotel. The hotel. I don't know why. Maybe for closure. Maybe because part of me wanted to see if it still had power over me. I stood across the street. Stared at the awning, the door, the polished glass. Wondered how many others had walked out of there the same way she did, smug, guiltless, certain. And then I did something bold. I walked in. The lobby was sleek, quiet, humming with that strange sense of luxury that's more about illusion than comfort. I approached the front desk. The woman behind it smiled. "Checking in." "No," I said. I was here a few weeks ago. I'm not looking for names or rooms. I just wanted to see it. In the daylight." She blinked. "Are you okay?" "Getting there." She hesitated. "You're not the first." That stopped me. "Sorry. I mean, you're not the first person to come back after finding something out. This place sees a lot of that. People think affairs are discreet, but they always leave shadows." I looked around. Everything looked the same. But she was right. There were shadows. And I was done standing in them. So I thanked her and walked out. Got back in the car. Drove home. And when I got there, I didn't collapse. I didn't drink. I didn't spiral. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started writing again. Not a letter. Not to her. But a story. Mine. Because if she gets to rewrite who we were in her head, then I damn well get to write who I am now without her. No edits. No metaphors. Just truth. It's been 83 days. I counted once. Not to mark the distance from her, but to measure how far I've come back to myself. The version of me before all of this, before the performances, before the manipulation, before I mistook tolerance for love. That man wasn't perfect, but he existed. And for years, I let her make him smaller. But now, he's here. And he's done shrinking. The divorce finalized last week. Clean. No drama. She didn't contest anything. I think she expected to keep me in some emotional purgatory. A backup soul waiting for her to return when Caleb, or whoever came next, got tired of her. But she miscalculated something vital. I stopped seeing her as mine the moment she smiled walking out of that hotel. After the papers were signed, I didn't celebrate. I didn't go out. I just sat on the edge of the bed in the now unshared apartment and exhaled. A long, quiet breath I'd been holding for years without realizing. Then I packed a small bag, a few clothes, my laptop, a book. I left the apartment key on the kitchen counter. And I drove. No map, no plan, just out. I needed new air. I needed to breathe where her memory hadn't touched the walls. I ended up in a coastal town 2 states away. Rented a short-term place with no Wi-Fi and too much silence. It was perfect. I spent my mornings walking barefoot on the beach. My afternoons reading books without checking my phone. My nights sleeping like a man who had finally laid a ghost to rest. But what mattered most? I started writing the full story. The real one. Not just for Reddit. Not just for sympathy. For me. Because here's what I've learned, and this is what I want anyone still reading to carry with them. Sometimes the people who betray you don't do it out of passion or lust. Sometimes they do it because they're empty and you were the last mirror they had to see their reflection in. And when they stop liking what they see, they smash the glass and blame you for the shards. Don't hold on to that broken reflection. Walk away. No matter how long you were together. No matter how many memories you built. No matter what lies they spin to soften the impact. Because you don't need closure from someone who tore you apart without flinching. The closure is you choosing yourself. And if they ever come back, as they often do, let them see the vacancy. Let them realize they didn't just lose you. They freed you. So that's it. That's my story. Not the beginning I wanted, but the ending I own. If you're in it, the chaos, the shock, the broken nights, just know there's another side. It's quieter. But it's real. And it's yours.